Warm welcome to everybody from a lovely day here in Mumbai. Nice rainy day. I hope we'll have an exciting 1.5 hours together. I enjoy taking these sessions because business strategy is one of my favorite subjects. And I do have a very deep philosophy of why I teach this subject. You see, once I was having a little, I'd gone, first time we bought our own house and we were having a little puja. We call it Griha Pravesh Puja. So we were having a little puja in the house, and the pujari who came to conduct the whole proceedings, at the end of it, they give a lecture, a pravachan kind of thing. So he just gave a nice lecture which has stayed with me all my life, and it has guided so much of what I do on a day-to-day basis. He said that there are four kinds of beings in this world. चार प्रकार के जीव हैं in Hindi, he said. The first kind of being is someone who thinks for other people's benefit but does not think for his own benefit. And he called it Devta. Somebody who's always looking for other people to be happy and satisfied, but doesn't take care of his own benefit at his own cost. Now, when you go to organizations, many organizations are like that. They want the employees to have a good time. They want the employees to be satisfied. They want employees to be happy. Doesn't matter if they're contributing employees or not, doesn't matter what their bottom line is. They will take care and welfare of their employees always comes first. This is called a Devta. The second is the kind who looks after his own benefit and the other person's benefit also, that kind of being. Mutually beneficial. We called it Manav. अपना भी भला सोचता है दूसरों का भी भला सोचता है so what works for you and what works for me, let's try and establish a win-win. I'm just trying to translate it more into business language, otherwise I can launch off into a pravachan of my own. In business language, to be human is to be establishing a win-win. What works for employees, management, HR, training, and also works for the business. So far, training does not work so much for the business as it ought to, which is why the subject is being taught. So the win-win doesn't get established. Training and trainees all seem to have a good time, but the business doesn't seem to be benefiting from any of the training that gets done. So that's the second kind of being. The third kind of being is the one who looks only after his own interests and not about the interests of others. In Hindi, it says, "Apna bhala sochta hai, dusron ka bhala nahi." And the Panditji called this an asura. Asura who takes care of his own benefit, doesn't bother about everybody else. So this kind of person is very selfish, looking after only his own benefit. So when sometimes training and HR becomes like this asura, we take care of our needs. We want to have good training programs. We want to have trainings that work. We want to have great feedback. We want to have people who entertain the audience and play lots of games, and everyone enjoys and has a good time. Arey, how did the business benefit? That's none of my concern. That's none of my business. Business is not my business. Business is something that, the strategy people will take care of, the CEO will take care of, the manufacturing guys, the sales guys will take care of. We need to have our expenses properly budgeted and planned. I'm not interested in business bottom line contribution. So these people I do believe training is sometimes very selfish and very much asura kind of person. And then the fourth kind of being also happens is अपना भला चाहे होना हो, दूसरों का भला चाहे होना हो, हमने तो सर्वनाश करना है. It's a lose-lose proposition. Training also loses, and HR also loses, and the business also loses. This is when training budgets get spent very frivolously, and he called this kind of being a rakshas. जो सिर्फ ना अपना भला सोचता है ना दूसरों का भला सोचता है, सिर्फ सर्वनाश करता है. So when people become cynical, hardened, and they crib and complain, and they don't work either, they start blaming games and start politicking. To me, that is destructive behavior. Nobody benefits. Neither you benefit, nor your department benefits, nor HR benefits, nor training benefits, nor business benefits. Nobody benefits. Everybody loses. It's a lose-lose proposition. So the reason why I teach this course is so that we are able to move towards being a manav, or to being more win-win, where we can establish degrees of alignment between what training does and gains that training brings for themselves, credibility, influence and delivering on skills that are needed, helping people, enabling their potentials to be actualized, enabling their talent to be expressed, and also meets the business objectives by making available the skills and talents that are needed for today as well as into the future. So to me, to be human is the only way forward, and that is one of the big reasons why I teach this course. So that HR and training and business act in mutually beneficial win-win ways. Everybody benefits. सबका कल्याण होता है, सबका भला होता है. So it's not 100% possible, but we try to make it possible to the extent that we can. So, for example, okay, I'll come up with an example later. Let me start the session for today. There's a very nice interview I have lined up for you in my best practices section, which will show you exactly how the win-win is going to be accomplished in one company example. Last time we had the example of Nayara Energy. This time it's a second example, and I'll let it be a little bit of a surprise till we get there. So in the meantime, let's begin with the content. Is one of the things about business strategy as a subject, it is conceptually a little heavy. I don't think it's heavy, actually. To me, it's fun. I play with the concepts. And unless you understand cognitively your base, you will never be able to succeed at understanding business strategy. And you'll never be able to succeed at understanding. A lot of times business strategy is about a closed room, which is like, people sitting in a closed room, discussing things out, sorting it out, trying to see which is the best way forward next day, next week, next year, next month. What should we be doing? And very often it's a serious game. It's not something to be taken casually, because it can define the difference between your success and your failure. And it can and the mastery of the game of strategy is absolutely important, and it's a game which gets decided here in your cognitive part of your brain. And if you do not have that clarity of being able to sort out what might work and what might not work, what strategy to adopt and how to weave and navigate your way through whatever you're experiencing, if you don't employ your frontal lobe over here, which is where your human brain logic and reasoning and rational thinking resides, then you may not be able to find a strategy that succeeds. So you'll have to go with the show flow. Today there's a lot of concept here, and we are into module 3, which is analysis of internal and external environment. And today we will be dealing with analysis of external environment. So far, what we have done is we have tried to understand the importance of HR and business strategy. We took up the case of that CEO who made an announcement without consulting HR. And we find that it continues to happen. If you remember 6 months ago when Elon Musk took over Twitter, he made a sudden announcement that we're going to be retrenching so many employees and we're going to be laying off so many employees. He did not consult HR. So if he had consulted HR in that decision making, he wouldn't have had so many law cases against him, because the minute he made the announcement bombastically, he didn't realize that America consists of many different states, and each state has their own labor laws and has their own regulations. And the announcement made in one state may not be relevant in another state. So Twitter employees all over the country were filing court cases and lawsuits claiming their bit at being retrenched. So he had to fight a lot of battles. Had he just simply consulted HR, he would have had a better way forward. So like, for example, the case study that we did last time, where the CEO made an announcement without consulting HR, you're bound to land up into trouble when you do that as a CEO. So we understood the role and importance of HR. We understood what is business strategy. Now let's try and we understood what are the steps in creating business strategy. So let us try and understand more of the concept. It begins with understanding your environment, with plugging into your world. Not from your own inner perspective and your own prejudices and your own bias, but from a proper external fact-based, data-based, evidence-based point of view. something that everybody can agree to is the right point of view. So very conveniently we say, okay, let's analyze the world outside, which is all your economics, politics, everything like that. And let's analyze the world inside as well. This is just for the sake of convenience, we make this distinction. Today we will be, so I want to begin with Michael Porter, who is one of the gurus of business strategy. The underlying principles of strategy are enduring regardless of technology or principles of change. So whatever I'm teaching today is nothing new. It's something that's always been talked about. Every time there are a lot of fashions and fads which come. But if you look at Sun Tzu, Art of War, you look at Mahabharata, you look at, so many other battles that may have been won and fought, there was always a strategy underlying. And it was that strategy that got the winning game. If you look at the way team sports are played, like football and those kind of sports, you'll find there's always a strategy, including cricket. Cricket is not truly speaking a team sport. There is some team element, but people go in and batting one at a time. You're out there on your own. You don't have to coordinate yourself with others like in football you do. But there is still a strategy that wins. And one of the master players in strategy of winning strategy of Indian cricket was Kapil Dev. There were many, many bigger players like him, like Sunil Gavaskar and Sachin Tendulkar, but they all they won because of the strategic mind, and that was able to leverage the genius of these wonderful players. So also MS Dhoni, extremely strategic thinker. He knows the opposition, he knows the external environment, he knows the internal environment, he knows all his players, and he knows the context of that whole match that is getting played, and he's able to create a winning strategy, a strategy that determines who will play when, a strategy that determines when the bowlers will be changed, how the fielding will be, how everything is in the every decision on the game is driven by a strategic decision, not by an operational decision. So, so the underlying principles are common wherever you go. So understanding the economic environment of business is a very important part of the whole thing. So external environments, what's happening out there. So for example, MS Dhoni, if you're playing India versus Australia, his strategy will be different. If you're playing India versus Pakistan, the strategy is different. India versus England. If we are playing on home ground, or we are playing on their turf, or we are playing in Mohali, or we are playing in Wankhede Stadium or D.Y. Patil Stadium here in Mumbai, depending on the entire external environment, his strategy will be different. He knows the pitch, he knows the world outside there. So that's the external environment. So also in the world of business, external environment consists of your competition, the ground level realities of whatever your economic sector is. If you're in an FMCG goods, so what are the distributor channels, or what are the what are the dynamics of the distributor channels? Sometimes there are third party distributors, they become a coalition and they play a political game of their own, and how do you break into that, and how do you still manage that? Who are the competition? How do they place themselves out there? So that's all the external environment. And the internal environment is also knowing yourself. What are your capabilities? I'm going to be good at doing this, and this is how I should leverage myself. So in the context of cricket, it's knowing who your skillful players are. And not necessarily the opening batsman is the best person, depending on the kind of pitch and the kind of ball, the way the pitch turns, the way the competition is, and the past history with that particular team, and how it's going to play out. If you win the toss or you lose the toss. So the internal environment also has to be leveraged. Your best, you have to be able to put your best foot forward, and you have to know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So that's the external environment. Yes, some kind of a SWOT analysis. So today we're going to spend our time on all the models that help us understand the external environment. Now, these are conceptual models, and these are very much used by most organizations that have a business strategy unit. Some companies do not have business strategy or strategic planning functions. And if you do not have, that doesn't mean you don't deploy any of these thinking. You still deploy the thinking. Only thing is not a formalized and regular process. So the external environment analysis actually looks at things like what are the immediate external factors. So my customer, my level of satisfaction of customers, are my customers loyal to me, are they not loyal to me, what are the geographies in which I succeed, what are the geographies in which I don't succeed. So immediate external environment, what are my distributor channels like, if I do have distributor, if I'm whatever, depending on business I am in. Then the industry external factors, who are my competitors, what kind of structures exist, so what kind of laws exist, what kind of taxation, what kind of regulatory authorities are there. So external factors. And then there are generic in external factors. Suppose I'm in the FMC business, then the business is like that. I can't change it. Suppose I'm in the aviation business, SpiceJet, large chunk of my expenses are only on fuel and operating costs. And that's a fact that cannot be changed. But I need to be aware of that when I have to decide my pricing strategy for Diwali or whatever. So generic external factors, something core which is part of inherent to the nature of the business that you do. So from the HR point of view, as an HR manager, each one of you, as a training manager, each one of you needs to have an answer to these questions. A, what is going on with the world and in our local economy? How many HR people ever ask this question? How many HR people even read the Economic Times? How many HR people look at the capital markets unless they're invested there? How many HR people know what the competition is doing? You need to ask this question. What's going on in the world and in our local economy? What are the trends there? If you cannot answer this question, then you need to go out there and start being able to figure out those answers. How will these affect our organization? So, for example, yesterday on BBC, there was a discussion on how the government has banned the export of non-basmati rice and tomatoes and onions because the prices in India are relatively low when compared to the rest of the world. So the rest of the world is seeing unprecedented levels of inflation, like in wheat and in rice, particularly because these always come from countries which are right now under war, like places like Ukraine and all. So a lot of farmers in India think it's much better to sell abroad rather than sell in India. And in India, there was a demand-supply gap that was coming in, and it was driving the prices in India also crazy. So the government, as a temporary measure, has banned the export of wheat and non-basmati rice. And so now the same thing they're contemplating. I was seeing on the news the other day, they might be contemplating to have a ban on, say, sugar. It was there on the BBC. So if they do that, what is the impact in our company, in our industry? My company makes a product that has, a lot of sugar in it, or I'm in the sugar business or in the sugar industry. So how will it affect my organization? I need to be aware of, I need to plan for that. And there was a whole analysis going around why this ban has taken place. So you need to know what's going on in the world out there. How does it impact our HR decision? Because what's going out in the world, the unemployment rate, the change in laws, political concerns, all impact my HR decisions. The minimum wages, the employment patterns, the incentive for startups, so people leave companies. And the other day there was one, I was sitting on an interview panel on some banking selection services, and we were talking about attrition in banks. Earlier, the public sector banks did not see any attrition at all, 0%. And then last week, somebody came up with some figures as to how much attrition there is in banks these days. People are leaving, and there's a lot of hiring happening from outside also. So there's a new trend, and this will impact your HR decisions definitely. No longer will you be recruiting in banks through an entrance exam. You will have to do lateral recruitment also in the future in case your banking attrition rates become higher. and availability of talent within doesn't happen. So it's important to know what's happening. Is the industry growing or is it not? Do we have enough manpower available or not? For example, I did one work for a very large construction company, and they had massive constructions, in place, infrastructure and constructions in place. I don't want to name the company, but two particular talents are very scarce in the construction industry. One is the people who operate the cranes, so the crane operators, and two is the people who are the carpenters who build the shutters and the supports for whenever you have the concrete pouring, the wooden structures that support the concrete till it doesn't set. So these two skills are very short supply because people come, they learn how to operate cranes and the carpenters, they get employed in the Gulf because there is a construction boom happening, in those countries. And so they don't stay around for longer than 6 months to a year just to acquire the skills. So for HR, that's important to know. Then you would have a way of establishing your continuity of your services. So this particular company, they worked with the local ITIs, and the local ITIs, they were sponsoring a course there only for crane operators, and they were getting a supply of 100 crane operators every quarter, permanently trained in a course which they only had sponsored, but the work was getting done by the ITI, the local ITIs. So HR decisions are impacted by what's happening out there in the industry. So if its industry is growing, industry is not growing, it makes a difference. We also need to, HR people also need to ask, how does the organization fit in the industry when it comes to competing for talent? Where's the best talent getting hired? So if I'm Tata Consultancy Services, am I able to attract the best talent or not? Because ultimately, whatever work I accomplish, projects I accomplish, and client service that I deliver is all driven by the talent that I have. So how does it fit in the industry? If I was in, say, a highly automated manufacturing industry, then it may not be such a critical thing for me to have that talent. So technology trends that will impact HR needs. Of course, everyone knows artificial intelligence, etc., whatever tech trends are happening. Skills that we need to make it sales competitive. How many HR people are able to answer such questions? I'm asking. How does the organization compare with its competitor in terms of benefit structures? So we do these wage and salary surveys all the time. Changes that might be needed to attract and retain talent. Strengths and weaknesses of the company, some SWOT analysis. Trends that will impact HR in the next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. What do we need to do to prepare for this change? So HR needs to answer business questions about the business. If we cannot answer these questions, we will not be able to fine-tune what we do to the needs of the business. So one of the first things that we do when we talk about external environment analysis is we talk about competitive analysis. How are our competitors doing? What are they up to?
Good now.
Who are my competitors? What products they sell? What is their market share? Am I growing in market share? Am I not growing in market share? What are their strategies? This is called business intelligence. Literally, it's like a CID operating out there. When you see, there's a function nowadays in organizations called business intelligence. They like to find out what is the competition doing. And many times, it's difficult to tell what the competition is coming up with next. So there's a business intelligence services many consultants offer to find out, put their ear to the ground and find out what's happening at the competition. And whether sometimes it crosses the ethical boundaries, but they still do it. Any insights into their current strategies? What type of media do they use? What are strengths and weaknesses of each competitor? If you see MS Dhoni, when he's leading a team, he knows the opposing team and he knows each player in the opposing team. He knows what their strengths and their weaknesses are. He knows so-and-so is a lefty and so-and-so is not a lefty. And he knows how to spin the ball in a way to catch these guys. and he is giving the right direction to the team members so that we play a winning strategy. So strengths and weaknesses of each of the competitors, so important. What potential threats do they pose? So, and any potential opportunities they make available for my business. Sometimes the competition gives us more opportunity than we know. Here is something we call the Porter's 5 forces model. This is 5 forces of analysis, 5 levels of analysis. Threat of new entry, competitive rivalry, supplier power. There are 5 basic competitor. One is, what is the rivalry amongst existing competitors? If we are, very, for example, SpiceJet and Indigo and Air India, there's a lot of rivalry. A lot of rivalry for the best prices and the best customers and getting some winning strategy going. What is the threat of new entrants? There are now a lot of new entrants coming, even in, say, aviation business. And customers have a choice. I can go either to Indigo, I can go to SpiceJet, I can go to Akasa Air, I can go to Air Asia. So many airlines are now there. What is the bargaining power of the buyers? As a customer, I have a bargaining power. I will not go for an airline where there's a cost surplus. Somebody was saying the other day that you go for Air India airline and you will get a discount because of being a senior citizen. But when you actually go there, you find that the discount that they give you on the price is only on the price, not on the fuel surcharge. And then when you look at the net price you're paying, perhaps an Indigo or a SpiceJet is cheaper option. So it doesn't really make any sense. So what is my bargaining power? I have an option. Do I not have an option? What is the threat of substitutes? I can easily say, okay, if I don't go by air, I'll take a train instead. It's a short haul anyway. And what is the bargaining power of suppliers? There is a McKinsey 7S framework. Abhijit, not necessary. Not necessary. You have to do a proper comparison to say. I have found it very often it doesn't work, even with the discount. Okay, so there is the 7S framework looks at a company. This is not necessarily external analysis, both external and internal. I look at things like my staff, my skills, my strategy, structure. So this is the model that McKinsey developed. McKinsey is one of the premium business strategy consulting firms. And there's some hard S's and some soft S's. One of the very standard way, this is the most commonly adopted, I will say, ways of doing external environment analysis. Invariably, every management person, CEO, any business strategy guy will begin with this model. And we'll talk about political, P is pest analysis, political, E is economic, S is social, what are the social factors out there, and T is technology. So these are pest kind of analysis that came out. And then later on, they added E and L. They added environment because environment became important. And legal was also important. And I'm seeing Brijesh is saying pest lead. So lead means I don't know what the other two.
Ethical, yeah, ma'am. Ethical and demographical.
Ethical and demographical.
Yeah.
Demographical comes into social aspect, and ethical comes in the legal aspect. So to me, that is not a mutually exclusive.
Okay.
Criteria is MECE, mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. For any model to be perfect. Okay.
Right.
If there are overlaps, then MECE conditions are not met. Sorry, I'm like that only. So pestle is better than pest lead, according to me. The ethical is part of legal. So I'm not violating any laws or any codes of conduct or any conflicts of interest and things like that. And social is also including your demographic. Okay, so that to me, because it includes the population, everything about the social, sociological, both, which includes demographic. So I want to take you today to meet one lady called Bidisha Banerjee. She is the Chief Group Learning and Development Officer of Wellspun Group. And before you read what is her best practice written in your course material, I want you to first listen to her because it's a totally amazing interview. I'm sure you will agree. It's one of the best that we did. कोई फायदा नहीं, फायदे का क्या फायदा, फायदे का क्या फायदा. I don't know why people don't realize that they're audible. मेरा क्या फायदा.
Right.
हम कहते हैं फायदे का क्या फायदा. There is a famous there is a very famous शेर. लोग कहते हैं मेरे काम का क्या फायदा और हम कहते हैं हम ये फायदे का क्या फायदा. Okay, here we are.
So good morning, friends. I'm today going to be speaking to Miss Vidisha Banerjee. She's the Group Chief Learning Officer for the Wells Fund Group. And she's here with us today. And this is our weekly best practice session that will bring to you the connection between business, strategy, and HR, and specifically learning and development, and how it is so important for learning and development activities to be completely aligned to business scenario. So Vidisha, welcome to our ISTT diploma program for training and development. Would you like to say?
Thank you, Aneeta. I'm really excited to be here today, and I think every time I go back to a school or a college, business school or a college or an institute as esteemed at ISTT, I think it gives me so much pleasure. And I'm really glad that you're doing this where you're also getting a view from the industry experts, because I think that's usually something that is the missing piece in this whole, and I think this is a very different and experiential way of learning. So thank you for having me over, and I'm sure this is going to be a great interaction with you.
So Vidisha, my first question to you is, what is the general process by which you decide training strategy for your company? And how do you ensure that these activities are aligned to the organizational direction?
Great question. I think, Aneeta, I've learned in my 2 decades of experience in learning and OD and culture is that the training strategy is probably exactly parallel to your business strategy. So I think one of the mistakes that sometimes HR folks make, that they get very blinkered. They have a blinkered approach to just doing HR jargons, HR models. But I think what's always worked for me is to be able to understand business really well. So whether I've spent about 8 years in retail. So I remember the first year, I was a keen observer and a learner of business metrics there. What were some of the business models they were following? And now that I'm with Wellspun, it's a conglomerate. It has different business metrics for different organizations. I think to understand that. So to answer your question, I think what and how I devise my learning strategy for the entire organization based on 3 things. One, of course, the organization values, which I believe are, the founding pillars of, really the soul of the organization. So that this, of course, is what the organization, what's the purpose of the organization? What are we here for? What is our story to add value into people's life? So a lot of that goes into the learning strategy. And I think which is much more long term. And I think on an annual basis, absolutely looking at business numbers, business, mindsets for that year. So to give you Wellspun's example, it's a conglomerate. We have textile business, we have retail, we have roads, pipes, infrastructure, and even flooring now. So the overarching business strategy across the group was to how do we move from a B2B to a B2C culture. And I think that for me became the theme, along with the values, the value pillars, the vision and the purpose, and then saying that this is what across all our businesses is one common thread that we are trying to achieve. So I would say, as a takeaway from, just to sum up what I said right now, I'd say understand your business, spend time really deep thinking into how would you there mobilize your strategy for the year. What long-term strategy, which is a reflection of your values and your vision. And of course, I think strategy today, another tip I want to give everybody is that, all businesses had a certain strategy before COVID. But you have to be agile and be able to adapt and probably change your strategy as we move. So I think the other thing that I also want to tell learning and HR professionals that you have to be able to change the wheels of a moving car. So be agile. So one, it is great to have a strategy in place, but also keep your eyes open. See if the business perspectives have changed, business priorities have changed, and how could you thereby align your strategy with business on a continuous basis.
Wonderful. So now to get a little bit more specific, could you tell us some best practices on any one business strategy scenario that your organization may have faced, and what adjustments you made to align your learning and development plans to fit into the directions that are set?
Again, great question, Aneeta. And I think it's just going to be about what I just spoke earlier. Like I said, interestingly, WellSpan is a conglomerate. So being in a group role, it allows you to actually navigate different businesses, understand different businesses. So one such new business that WellSpan has ventured in the last 2 years was a business of flooring. So it's WellSpan Flooring Limited. They have a huge setup in Hyderabad, and it's a 350-acre plant. And the difference in that is that all this while, WellSpan was really known for its product. But the flooring business is so unique because if you see the players in the market in India, it's probably just a Nitco tiles that exist. But nobody has a setup wherein you have the entire production, state-of-the-art facility, everything being manufactured and made in India. So this plant offers state-of-the-art facility. It has machines from Europe, Germany, Australia. Now, while you can get your processes and machines in place, I think for any business to thrive, you need great processes, and of course, you need great culture and people. And of course, to do that, you need to have a certain sort of a mindset to achieve your business targets. Now, one of the challenges that we faced as a business in WellSpan, typically, now from the time that we've existed, our focus has always been B2B, right? And our focus has never really been B2C. Because we work in textiles with the Walmarts and Tesco's of the world, whether in the road project, the government of India really is our client. In the pipes business, it's again, we're supplying it to somebody. So we've never really interacted with the consumer directly. So which made us always very focused on SOPs, product efficiency. But when it comes to understanding consumer needs, looking at probably having empathy for the final user, did not exist as a culture in WellSpan. So interestingly, when we started this project with WFL, or the WellSpan Flooring Project, the Apex members or the steering committee members, they actually came to us and said, hey, we are facing this challenge because a bulk of our people are people who worked in WellSpan in different businesses. So they are technically very sound. They're very loyal to the organization. But where we are lacking is, I think, their mindset to be able to understand the consumer, because all they can think, breathe, and dream is the product or the tiles, right? And we're not able to connect with them and tell them that, how, unless we picture the consumer and their pains, we're not going to have a story where we're going to meet our targets as sales numbers. And I think that's from that conversation onwards, of course, the entire learning team, or my entire team, we got into a conversation, we got into a diagnostic, and we attempted to start an intervention where, right from the Apex team members to the last person on the floor, we told them a story of how we did a workshop on how do you change your mindset towards looking at customers. So we spoke about concepts of design thinking. We spoke about, having where empathy and the consumer stands in the middle. And we, of course, used in sales, because it's a large sales organization, because you're selling your flooring, you're selling your ideas. We spoke about storytelling as a tool to sell. So, and I think the difference, Aneeta, was, when you try to change people's mindset from product to consumer, it's very easy. It sounds very easy to be done on a presentation, but I think it takes a lot of time. It has its own gestation period, because people are not able to see it. They don't see the value of it, because they have come from a school of thought that says, hey, the product is the king, and the consumer will take whatever I give them. So I think when we started working with the Apex, and I still remember this so vividly, there were a group of at least 15, 20 of them, all vice president and presidents and above. And I think the one thing came constantly as a feedback from the entire team saying that, how is this going to matter? How is it going to impact our business numbers? All we need to do is a great product and people will come to us. I think from that mindset to say that, hey, you know what, let us understand what the consumer wants. When you sell flooring today, one of the first thoughts that come to your mind is that you don't want anybody to really look at coming to your house. It's going to take days. But how do you address that pain of the consumer? So that's when they came up with a compelling story saying that, our outlook is going to be that within just 3 hours, we can redo the entire flooring of your house. So when we moved the focus from saying that, the quality is so great and the product is, durable, it's, sustainable, to the concept where, what is your biggest pain? Today, for you to do up your house, you can still do your walls, you can do your furniture, but most people don't touch the flooring. Once they do it up, it's like forever there. Right. So the compelling story went to them saying that, what, you can do the flooring within 3 hours, go watch a movie and come back and your flooring will be changed. I think when we shifted that focus to saying what the product was, to really understand what the consumer's pain was. So not only just the product story during sales, but the advertising campaigns, the social media presence, all of it carried the theme of B2C, or to talking to the consumer directly. And I think in terms of metrics and numbers, we were struggling, Aneeta, to be very honest, in the first and a half, the first year and a half, because to meet our sales targets, even though having such a compelling product, where you can do soft tiles, hard tiles, we were struggling to meet our numbers. But through this intervention, where we started with workshop with the senior leaders and the middle managers, to the sales team, to the operations team, it took us an entire year to work with them. And today, after 2.5 years, the tables have completely turned. We're overbooked, and we have consumers across the world, whether it's US or Germany or Europe or India, and people are fascinated, of course, with the product quality. But I think what they talk about is the service and the after-sales service and the consumer connect. And we used technology in a large way. So we all had, we've given everybody a tab, and everybody showed the entire product. They could actually take your house, put up a 3D model, and show how the flooring would change. So I think, when you talk about any cultural intervention, it's never in isolation of just doing a workshop. It's very important to be able to lay out what are the stakeholders that can get influence. So of course, one is the leadership team. How will the sales team translate it? How will it translate into the product being sold better by the feet on street? How will the operations team, go back with quality inputs from the sales team and make it better? So I think we had these metrics very clearly defined for us when we started. We said the sales has to increase by so much. The complaints that we are getting will need to come out by X percentage. The kind of service feedback that we're getting from 3 should get to a 4.5. So I think when we started this intervention, 2 things. We were very mindful that it takes time. So we had a vision of 2.5 years, and we clearly made these metrics. It was part of their business strategy. So the entire intervention, every quarter we would meet and we would talk about where we are moving, how close is it from where our target was. And we realized that, just coming together, brainstorming, talking about problems, talking about how this culture shift and mindset started having impacts in business, right? So we see the numbers today, and the numbers speaks for themselves. And like I said, we're overbooked. We don't have as many complaints. We have clients reaching out to us from across the globe. And as a byproduct, the team is super engaged, Aneeta. They're super engaged. They're happy. We can see the energy and the vibe as soon as you move to the Hyderabad plant. And I would love to invite you, one day to come and see the state-of-the-art facility, but also interact with the people. Like the energy that I saw 2.5 years back to what I see now, you can feel a sense of achievement that they carry with each other. So
this is an amazing story that you're just telling us, and it's all real, and so much importance that HR and learning and development, what an important role it has played in the success of this particular business venture. And not only did you tell us what you did and how you did it, and where it all began, but you also showed us how the metrics, etc., have changed. And I think the most important lesson that we have derived from you is that training is an investment. When you start doing the training, you're not sure whether it's going to pay off or not, but you have to invest in faith. And it's taken you 2 years long training effort for you to recover the return on that investment. And the return is not just in terms of sales metrics and customer satisfaction indexes, which are definitely important, but it's also in terms of employee engagement and motivation and the entire vibe and the culture of the organization. So it's an amazing story, and I'm sure the participants of the ISTD program are going to benefit. A large audience is going to benefit from this. And I'd like to close now, but I have one very, very brief question. We're already shooting ahead of time. But what are the small adjustments you might have made, in the COVID scenario, post-COVID scenario, in all these efforts that you are making? Very briefly, please.
Yeah, so I think for us, some of the learning interventions or some of the conversations have become much more individual. So when I say we used to do trainings probably for larger cohorts, we realized the power of having smaller cohorts whenever you're doing a learning interaction. So maybe I think one I would say is that because it's virtual, most of the work that we're doing virtual, if you have just 10 people, you can have them all on screen, have them on video. And I think the whole power of learning socially, learning from peers, learning from experiences, and not doing any intervention which is spread over 2-3 hours. I think people maximum have the bandwidth to listen to you for 40-45 minutes. But even in that 45 minutes, what we do is any intervention that we're doing, we talk about the concept for the first 10-15 minutes, and the next part of the time is actually involved in discussions and debate and learnings and application. So I think that's what we're doing, differently.
So you brought the same interactivity that
Yes.
you would have in a face-to-face conversation, but done it through media. It's not a one-way, webinar that's being beamed out. It's
Absolutely.
an interactive peer learning kind of model.
Absolutely.
So that's how you use digital technology to adapt your learning. So on behalf of ISTD Vidisha, let me say a very, very warm and heartfelt word of gratitude to you. And I do hope that we will see more of you on this forum. And any one last word that you'd like to say?
I think for me, always, I'd like to say 2 words. I always say stay curious. I think that's a trait that has always helped me in my life and my career. I think the minute that we feel that we know it all is where it begins. So I think stay curious, stay safe. And of course, that will keep you happy. So thank you, Aneeta, for having me over, and wonderful interaction. Wishing all the students listening in today all the very best in your journey for learning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great interview, madam. Very insightful.
Yeah, very, very insightful indeed. And, every time I listen to it, every time I see something more and something new. And
She was so clear in our discussion. It's great.
absolutely. So I hope
And I was
to the recording and
Sorry.
listen to it one more time. You go back to the recording and listen to it one more time. It will be definitely more beneficial.
We wish to do that. Definitely.
Yes. What was
I was just wondering, Dr. Madhok, that whether we could do this, we can have a live guest in this session itself and, do a quick 5 minutes fireside chat types.
Yeah, this
Wouldn't
is
be
not
interesting?
like that. It's just it's pre-recorded, and you can tell I recorded it during the COVID times, which is when your course material was also written by me, because I was doing both the jobs simultaneously. So first I was recording the interview, then we were writing the case best practice, and then we were putting it into the course material. So it was being done simultaneously. So you can tell these are a little out of date. I would love to do something live, but then it's just a huge coordination effort. It's just a huge coordination effort to bring somebody here and then to manage that interface. It's just, But I have already sounded off 2 more CHROs for whom I'm doing some work that I want to do an interview, best practice in business strategy and HR interview for you. So I'm planning to update these best practices. Some of them are not so great, but I'm planning to update them. So I hope I will be able to bring for at least the 90th batch, if I'm continuing the 90th batch, some more interesting. If you are really interested in such kind of subject matter interviews, you can visit my YouTube channel. Search for Aneeta Madhok, and you will find a whole section on subject matter interviews. I teach many courses, things like Arvind Agarwal trainer as a coach, from being a trainer to being a coach. So many. I teach a course on consulting skills. So there are a lot of interviews and best practices there on consulting, business consulting. So you can always listen to any of these and many more such interviews, because they are very fascinating, the way the insights come from the world outside. So in the meantime, I have to continue. There is a case study which I have planned for you today. So there's a YouTube link as well. You'll be getting the slides from here. Jasprit, you have a question? Jasprit, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, Ms. Madhok, I just wanted to understand, on the basis of the interview itself that she mentioned, she conducted training for over a year, and that is how she was able to instill maybe a little more empathy in people. But I would I just have this one question, because my organization is struggling with the same problem, where we are getting a lot of fails on addressing vulnerability and being empathetic towards our customers. And we've been running these sessions for over 4 years now. And still there is, not a significant change or a drop in such responses. So she just told me that, the tables just turned and they are overbooked and all of that. Of course, they must be. And that is why, consumers from our company are also not dropping for some reason. But again, we've been running this for last 4 years, and still we're not getting the desired result. So I was just it just connected to my own organization, and that's the only question.
So, 2 or 3 things you have to ask yourself. One is there really a business need out there for you to be more empathetic, for your salespeople to be more empathetic? For example, in this case, the company was into B2B. They make roads and they make infrastructure projects and cements.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the top management team from here had been moved to the new business, which was in the flooring. And flooring, you have to talk to women and interior decorators. It's a completely different ball game. So there was a need. So that was driven by the need of the business. So you have to first ask yourself, is there really a real need of the business for them to be more empathetic? And second question you need to ask, training is not the only panacea or the only solution for everything. There are organization processes which have to support. So there were sales metrics, and there were incentives for those who are achieving better customer connects. There were 360-degree feedbacks from the customers after jobs were done to help people really improve themselves. There's a lot of support from the marketing team, because the marketing team also felt that, unless we go out there and empathize and we understand our customers better, we will not be able to execute it. So you have to also understand training is a part of the solution. It's not the total solution.
Yeah.
It is supported from all these other domains. Training can definitely deliver. It's a part of the solution. Nobody walks into a training program saying, I'm not empathetic, I'm not compassionate.
Yeah.
And 2 days later, you walk out being full of empathy and compassion.
Correct.
It doesn't happen. It's a part of a larger organization-wide change initiative. You have to understand that as well. So that's the second point I have. Then the third point is sometimes culture eats strategy for breakfast. Means the organization culture is so opposite. You want to be the opposite of what you actually are. Without there being any other driving factor. So whether there's a business need or not, we have to be, but the internal environment is not like that. It's not supporting. So internal environment also has to support the change initiative and bring about change slowly. And otherwise, for 4 years, you are just trying to get people to do the opposite of what they're used to be doing. And no amount of training is going to accomplish that. So that also happens. And there could be many other things going wrong. One needs to really get into a proper diagnostic situation. Maybe you could write a little case study on this, on why training didn't work. And you might not want to disclose your organization, but you could write a little case study why training did not work, and then put it to the group in your WhatsApp group here, and get everyone to give answers and solutions why it probably didn't work. Maybe you'll find a solution there.
Yeah, no, sounds interesting. And of course, I'm going to ask these 3 questions to myself and my team as well. Let's see what we got there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So that was Bidisha Banerjee, and there are many more such best practice interviews in your textbook, as well as this year the policy has changed. In the past years, the policy was that the faculty would take 10 sessions totally, which are required, 10 sessions to teach this course. But they've changed the policy. They have said 5 sessions, you will take 5 sessions will be taken by another faculty. They want to give the chance to many more people to be associated with the program. Otherwise, people start clamoring, we also want to teach, we also want to teach. So they've tried to accommodate that. So I may not be able to share with you all the 5 or 6 best practices that I've got recorded, but you will find them in your book, and you will also find the corresponding interviews on my YouTube channel. So once you get to this YouTube link, you'll be able to see the rest of the interviews, which I may not be able to show you due to lack of time. So here is a short little case study for you. Will somebody take some time out to read this, and then we'll break into smaller groups and we'll go into rooms and we will discuss the case. So any volunteer to read this case study out aloud?
Ma'am, can I try?
Yes, please. What's her name?
Yeah, ma'am, Bharat here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please read.
The
Bharat,
marketing
please.
department of your company was finding it difficult to fill open job positions in a timely manner. Added to it was a high level of attrition in the sales force, which consisted largely of young graduates looking for short-term employment to fill the gap before going to higher studies. Loss of revenue as a result of positions vacant was causing stress to the business bottom line and achievement of strategic goals for the sales and marketing share. The time to fill open positions was taking too long. There was no clear path forward for open positions and getting them filled. The marketing had decided to speak to the talent acquisition team about the need for quicker turnaround for staffing process. They started documenting various stage points, including the time to approve requisitions and the time taken at various stages of the recruitment process. The TA had ramped up networking with staffing agencies and adjusting the interviewing process to address time and interviewer proficiency. The members of the TA team were more aware of turnover, staffing metrics, and the interviewing process. The time to fill up open positions was reducing dramatically. Training was revised to include a new onboarding orientation process for new hires to assist with getting them to work faster with more general knowledge upfront. Number 1, briefly outline the strategy developed by TA head to align to business needs. What do you think can be done in the addition to these efforts? And second point is, what are some of the potential pitfalls that lie ahead?
Okay, so we've got this case study. I want everyone to take a screenshot of this because I will also put a screenshot in the chat window. And I want to break you into groups and answer these 2 questions. So where's the tools for breakout rooms? How many participants are we? 85. So for 85 people, including myself, so 84, so 85 people, I will make 12 breakout rooms. 12 breakout rooms. So you're going to be assigned to a breakout room. Please make sure you have a screenshot. I'm going to put a screenshot of this in the chat window, and I'm also going to copy paste the text into the chat window. I want you to discuss and find the answers to the last 2 questions. And we will have 15 minutes discussion in the breakout rooms. And then when you come out, we'll have another 15 minutes discussion on this case study. Okay? So,
Dr. Madhok, could you
yes,
please put this in the chat box, as you said, the entire text? Thank you.
I will. The text as well. The text may not go in one shot. Normally I have to break it up into 2 shots and send. So you'll get in the chat as well as a screenshot, but you take a screenshot too.
Actually, this case study is also there in a book on page
There in the book.
33.
Page, which page? Page
Ma'am, page 33.
33. Okay, so please go to page 33 also.
Thank you.
Okay, so welcome back, everybody. And we have about 15 minutes to discuss the case study. So, while it's impossible to take all the 12 groups and have their perspectives integrated here, it's not possible. So, yeah, there you are, fastest fingers first. Debian, let's go. Tell me.
First
Yeah.
strategy was documenting each and every process, which helped the leader to diagnose all the bottlenecks behind the process by doing retrospective study, which helped him to check which process is taking more time and to reduce that time particular to make all the hiring process streamlined.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I please?
For first one,
Ma'am, I would like to add some divine here.
and they are hiring young ones as a like they are hiring more young ones. So due to this, they are having multiple vacancies because they are only for short term as employment. So they can focus on more experienced employees.
So that is
Another
what the
one
source
point is
came out in
there.
our group.
Who can stay for a longer time.
Okay.
Campus
Motivation
recruitment should
part
be
is motivation
campus
part is
recruitment should
over
be
there.
stalled.
Yes.
Going for
What
experience.
where the organization is lagging is like motivation part.
First of all,
Right?
shall we not
For the
talk about the
sales team,
strategy which was used, which is most
can I
probably the
please
resource-driven
conclude?
strategy?
I'm actually onto something.
I think we can give answer one by one.
Yeah, actually, I'm just going to answer. So just let me
Okay.
finish first.
So,
Yeah. So,
open
ma'am,
discussion.
yeah, my point is like the organization is actually lagging on the motivation part. So sales team is a basic basic team and the team which brings the revenue and all. So over here we need to focus more on incentivizing people out there so that will come into a play. It will eventually put a motivation on the existing employee. Moreover, we can work on career progression, like whom we are taking. Say for example, if we are keeping them on a probation of 6 months, and we can promise like if they can work better after the confirmation, we can look for a career elevation, like we can put them into the senior executive level. So that is a possible
Can I just say
strategies.
brevity is next to godliness. So the more brief you are able to create your answer, go upstream and find a better concept. I do believe that the current strategy has been very reactive because they're only reacting to the situation and it's like a stopgap arrangements they're making, and they've been able to temporarily ramp up. While it is good, it has achieved the purpose of stemming the shortage of manpower, but they need to do something in the long run as well. And be more proactive about it. They need to find ways to create a talent pipeline to make sure that the steady availability of talent from outside is there. Second, they need to look inside the organization and look at what are the engagement issues and why people are leaving and try to address those as well. So in a very small nutshell, this is the answer to what everybody was saying so far. But I want to hear everybody also.
So I would like to add, ma'am, like you said, we need to internally see what are the issues. For example, if you are dealing with the young graduates, there may be some of the policy procedure processes related to education which can be implemented to retain these guys on a longer basis. Because if you are offering a good education policy plan, definitely young graduates will stay back. Second thing is
what it takes to retain people.
Yeah. So maybe retention is a major case, and it may happen that if we don't convince them on a proper growth plan that we have for them, so how they're going to grow from one level to another, and what is for them, definitely it is something which is going to be helpful in the longer run. So these were some of the points. Apart from this, we also looked at that we could do skill mapping as a group. We discussed we could work on skill mapping to identify what are the areas that we are lacking, and are we hiring the wrong people, are we looking at doing the job evaluation exercise, maybe to look at what kind of JD are existing internally, if we need a remuneration policy check, something like that can be done. Also we looked at once people are in, so to retain them, to sustain them, to build a proper training culture, to build a proper there has to be a proper work culture. The managers need to be aligned with the entire business intent. So maybe we also need to investigate if there are some issues in the work culture in terms of the soft skill side, or maybe something
So
that
we need to assess the situation and see why the attrition is so high. And depending upon what that situation may throw up, whether it's high in the north, south, east, west regions, or particular bosses, particular managers are finding higher attrition levels in their departments. Is there or is the nature of the young generation that's coming in, that they're just large graduates. They want to work for 3-4 months, make some money, and then go for their MBAs or their engineering. We don't know what the real reasons are. We need to do a full talent attrition study to see why people are leaving, and then accordingly devise a set of actions that will help to stem the flow. Whether it means training people or hiring people on permanent trial, not hiring fresh graduates, have some kind of a solution that will work depending upon what our understanding throws up.
Also, to improve the flow, they can do the more corporate branding so that the people are interested to join the particular organization.
True.
Employee branding.
Yeah, we have growth plan.
Ma'am, with your permission, can I talk about it?
So we cross-train them as well.
Yeah, so you cross-train people as well from, so that you have easily job rotation opportunities that might.
Right. So that retention would be on that part, would be helping in terms of, lowering down the attrition part, which would be there.
Just adding to that, we can also make candidates sign a bond or a contract so that we can control on the attrition part. And for the inflow of the right talent, we can also introduce the referral programs within the company so that we have a better pipeline of the candidates which
Good point. Very good point.
which are coming in.
Referral point with reward.
Hiring excess, sometimes people hire excess and keep them on the bench. Hire 5% people more than you need 100 people, you hire 105, keep 5.
That may not increase the cost.
It does increase the cost, but it makes you have to do the cost benefit analysis to see, because there's a lot of loss. It says that loss of revenue as a result of positions vacant was causing too much stress to business bottom line.
Right.
Sometimes it may be better to hire a little bit excess so that you have ready manpower available, and to do a little bit of overstaffing. That was always the case for the tech companies. Used to always have people on the bench. Whenever they used to have high attrition, the people on the bench. Otherwise, people in the pipeline and the wait list, people who are there out there in the world, and you just tell them, okay, we'll hire you when the time is right.
So keeping shortlisted candidate, that can be a good opportunity, as rightly said, as a backup.
Keep them apprentice also.
For proper supply of manpower, so that every time, every new batch that comes out, you're able to hire. So having some kind of a talent pipeline ready. So there are lots of things that you can do to deal with it. Some of the potential pitfalls are that anybody wants to talk about the pitfalls?
Yes, Dr. Aneeta. This
yes.
is from breakout room number 10.
10,
So
yes.
some of the pitfalls that we have discussed is, one is the cost. So if based on the marketing, based on the strategy that TA team is going, if the TA, talent acquisition group of that company goes for, sometimes we go for employee referrals if you want to fill up positions faster.
or if we are going for even for contractual employees, then obviously there is a cost involved in it. So the cost could increase, and that may or may not be aligned as per the budgets. So I think that is one of the big pitfalls, because all companies want to make profits and business. So cost is one of the thing. Quality could be one of the challenges as well, because if we are asking for contractual employees, one, I don't think that, because we can say that with contractual employees, sometimes they don't want to give their 100% because they themselves know they are on contract. So by the time their contract is getting over, they're already hunting for different jobs. And also, if we are doing a lot of hiring at one time, then one of the biggest pitfalls is the induction training, which is even happening inside the company. Because if we have to put them on the shop floor as soon as possible, we may not be able to give them the time or the OGT kind of training that we would want, organization would want. So we may not get the quality that organization would be looking for.
Okay. Thank you, Shivli. There are many things that can be done. One of the biggest pitfalls is they're looking at only time to hire as the only staffing metric. That how much time does it take to hire? So they've looked at the time to hire and they've tried to crunch the times there. You're very right. They're not looking at the cost per hire, and which is a very critical metric. And there is also not looking at the quality of the hire. Or they're not looking at any other talent acquisition metrics as to how many people were offered a job and how many accepted, and after how many accepted, how many joined. They're not looking at how long people stay. So they're not looking at many of the other metrics which will give them a more holistic picture. Right now, they are just very short-sightedly. They're looking at only the time to hire because that's the need of the hour. They're in a firefighting mode, but as soon as they stabilize their onboarding and recruitment time to hire, they need to look at other things as well. If they don't, then the chances are that the recruitment costs will overtake the cost of loss of business. So because staffing agencies, etc., are all very, very expensive ways to hire people. So there are lots of.
Professor, just one query I have. When we are talking about the strategy, do we have any standard strategy, like any model, or we are talking about a generic strategy that they are doing here? Are we going to learn any strategies like?
We are very reactive over here. Yes, we will be learning if I take all 10 sessions.
Great. Thanks. Yep.
I may not be able to get to the point as to what is the HR strategies depending upon business strategy. But it's there in your book. If you look in your book, there is lots of talk about different kind of strategic choices. So if I'm having a cost optimization strategy, then what is the HR response to that? So there's lots of
So do you mean to say like we have to correlate that the case studies like this with the strategies and then explain the answer?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I'm going to close the session. I'm sending you one slightly about 10 pages long case study, HRM systems reforms at Matsushita. While this is slightly dated, but it's very, very relevant case study. Actually something that happened at Matsushita. So I'm going to send you this case study. So prepare the answers to the questions at the end so that we can discuss in the next class, right? I'll be taking the next class. I will also send you the article, Effective HR Business Partner. If you have any questions, please come with those. And there will be open class discussion as well. So that's all for the day today.
Thank you so much, madam.
Dr. Aneeta, expecting more such case studies in forthcoming classes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
ma'am. We hope
Thank
you
you,
take all the
ma'am.
10
Thank you, ma'am.
sessions. Thank you, ma'am.
I take
Thank
care.
you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, well, I'll see you next time. Next.
See you, ma'am.
See you, ma'am. See you. Take care.
Ma'am,
Thank
wish
you,
to have
ma'am.
more sessions with you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, all 10
Thank you so
sessions
much.
with you, ma'am.
Home
Thank
tension
you, ma'am.
I agree with Dijesh.
Have a great week and see you next Sunday.
Same to you, ma'am. Thank you.
You
Thank
too.
you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for all the love.
Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you.
Next.